Titletown South Florida, sponsored by Orange Bowl.
Since 1935, Orange Bowl's service and commitment to South Florida has been as diverse as the residents that live here. Over the past 2 decades, Orange Bowl and its partners have committed more than $40 million to improving the South Florida community through its Orange Bowl Cares initiative. To learn more, visit orangebowl.org. What's up, everybody? We are back for another episode of Titletown South Florida. Thanks for joining us once again. I'm Andre Fernandez, Deputy Sports Editor at the Miami Herald, and I'm joined this week once again by my buddy Jordan McPherson, our Miami Marlins beat writer, who often contributes to the high school sports beat and a regular co-host on this show. Jordan, fresh cut, man. I see you're in baseball season mode, and those Marlins aren't doing too bad.
No, yeah, they're holding their own. They're hovering around 500, which, considering the schedule they had, I'll take that to start the year. Skip Schumacher's gotten them off to a great start. The pitching's doing all right. The offense, well, they have offense, which is something I wasn't able to say often my first 4 years on the beat. But enough on the Marlins talk. Let's get on with what's going on down here with the high school.
Yeah, people want to know about the future guys that could end up in the major leagues one day. But do catch Jordan's podcast, Fish Bites, on MiamiHerald.com and Spotify and wherever you pod. But this week, he and I are going to talk about a few teams in baseball that have done well, a few resurgent teams on the high school scene. One of those teams that we'll start with in a little bit is Miami Springs, who happened to be at Lone Depot Park not that long ago, playing in the Field of Dreams Classic and looked pretty impressive doing that. But we're going to talk about the Miami Sunset baseball team, which has had an amazing turnaround this past year. Also, the Varela baseball team just beat them in the GMAC tournament in the quarterfinal round. They themselves have an interesting story in the way that they've turned things around. So you're seeing a lot of good programs that were good in years past starting to get better. And we'll talk, of course, we have to talk about Stoneman Douglas and what they're doing, 18-0 now. More importantly, Christian Rodriguez, the pitcher. We'll talk a little bit about that. He has double-digit strikeouts left and right. We'll go into a little bit about him. Then we'll also salute some of the best performances around town, as we always do. We have our Players of the Week voting going on MiamiHerald.com, so please feel free to vote there. Vote for your favorite player. Again, unlimited voting there. You can vote as many times as you want. The polls close on Thursday nights, but we'll be honoring some of the best performances as always. And then we're going to take a quick look ahead. Spring football, clock is ticking, 2 more weeks, and practices begin. I know people are starting to get a little starved for football. Well, it'll be, before you know it, it'll be all around town and kids getting ready for the upcoming 2023 season. But it's been kind of crazy with what we've been calling the high school transfer portal, more active than ever this year. And I'll talk a little bit about the Brian Piccolo Awards. I was able to attend last week, where they honored some of the best and brightest in Broward County, including 2 remarkable careers, who it was good to see. Not just we've talked so much about them on the football field, but we'll talk about their accomplishments in the classroom as well. And that's Mark Fletcher from American Heritage, Western's quarterback, Colin Hurst as well. Now, remember, in addition to watching this show as you are right now, either here or on YouTube, MiamiHerald.com, it's also available, as I said before, as a podcast. And on any of the typical platforms you listen to pods, to Spotify, iTunes, you name it, it's there. So if you can't see this show, you could always listen to this show. Maybe you're in the car, maybe you're in somewhere where you can't actually watch it. Maybe you're in a meeting and you want to listen to the pod more than what they're saying in the meeting. Go right ahead. You have it right there. But anyway, we'll start with the baseball segment now. And as mentioned before, it's GMAC week in Dade County, and always, it's not the playoffs, but it's kind of like the playoff tune-up. And boy, was it ever when those 2 teams we mentioned, Varela and Sunset, happened to be bracketed together. 2 of the turnaround stories of the year. Ended up being a great game, a walk-off win by the Vipers, who are 13-1-1 this season. Pretty impressive for them, because this is a team that before last year had never even made it to the regionals. They made it last year. They got bounced in the first round by St. Thomas. The other interesting storyline is, of course, former Miami Hurricanes coach, former Gulliver coach, Laser Collazo, is the coach there, now in his 3rd season there. We know he's got a little bit of a history, but the guy can coach baseball, and he's done a great job with those kids. And they've turned things around over there. It was a big 7th inning, a double by Juan Concepcion, the senior, got the ball rolling and got the game tied. And then Nicolas Machado drove in the winning run with another hit of his own. We talked to a couple of those kids. We talked to both of those kids after the victory. Here's Juan Concepcion, who happened to take a pretty nasty hit on his elbow right here, had a welt about this much, and couldn't even really grip. And I asked him, like, how did you swing the bat? Forget getting the hit. How did you even grip the bat? And he was like, I just played through it. You know, it didn't matter that it hurt. Here's Juan talking about it.
Set it up. You guys set it up there in the 7th inning. Talk about just, what you guys saw on those pitches and how you got it done.
I mean, we have a great team. A lot of injuries happening right now, and this team stays together. And we're still gonna win, and we're still gonna stay together no matter what.
How much of the wins, once you started winning these games, how much did the belief kind of grow that it was possible?
We had the first 2 off-season games and we lost, and we were like, are we really that good? And then when the season started, we started building up teams after teams after teams, and we were like, okay, we're good. Injuries happened and we stayed together and we still won the game.
This tournament is, it's not the playoffs yet, but it's a chance to really show how far you've come. How excited were you for these games and the chance to prove you guys that
I mean, they always say that we have an easy schedule where we're not that good, and whoever wants it, come here and we're going to give it to you guys.
Tell me about your pitcher too. I mean, Luce here, he had, shut it down there.
He's a great guy. Tremendous pitcher.
What about your coach, man? 'Cause he's really the last 3 years has started to build this with you.
I mean, this coach, I can never ask for a better coach than this. Building after us, better than us, getting on us, and we're still winning.
Congratulations.
If there's any doubt that we're a Miami-based show, the tremendo pitcher line there, throwing in the Spanglish there was definitely an example there for sure. But Varela, it's pretty interesting, Jordan. 13-1-1. This is the best start they've ever had record-wise. I mean, it'll be the best season they've ever had if they can finally win a regional playoff game. But pretty good to see, and we'll talk about Sunset too later on in the show, but good to see some of these public school programs that have hit some hard times in recent years start to pick it up again, isn't it?
Yeah, no doubt about it, especially when you look at, going back with the timing of it being where we are now, a couple years ago when COVID hit, a lot of teams really felt the impact on it in terms of players transferring out to schools that were playing and just the impacts on that in addition to it. And when you look at Varela, their schedule may not be the toughest, but they have some pretty key wins. That St. Thomas Aquinas team that beat them in regionals last year, they beat them early in the year 7-5. They have wins against Riviera Prep, who's usually a pretty good team in the playoffs in some of the lower classifications. They beat Gulliver Prep this year as well, 10-4. And their lineup is just, they're balanced. Juan Concepcion, team high 14 RBI, 10 runs scored. Sebastian Gonzalez has a 442 average. They have 5 guys with 10 RBI, 6 guys with 10 runs scored. They're pitching. They have a couple really good guys. Edgar Colon, 0.85 ERA, 38 strikeouts over just 24 2/3 innings. They have pieces there that when they're working together, and they've been working together very well all season, they're one of those teams that could be a dark horse for trying to make some noise once regionals roll around.
Yeah, and that's the tough part that's going to be for them because they're in 6A, and right now they're leading their district because of the record that they have. But in that district, there's Doral Academy, which we know, defending state champion there. Loaded team once again this year. Adrian Santana, prospect shortstop, committed to the University of Miami. He's having an insane year. He's one of our players of the week that we'll mention later on. But that's definitely the giant that they're going to have to take down later on. But looking at the bracket, though, that's what I'm thinking, especially the way that districts are set up now, that it's by power rankings and not only the top 2 advance. You could make it even as a 3rd, 4th place team. Yeah. Say they were to suffer an upset, just saying. There's no doubt in my mind they're going to be in the regionals, barring a catastrophe. And then if they get in, you won't get Doral right off the bat. More than likely, you'll get somebody else that they'll have an opportunity to potentially advance. So it's interesting, this team, the way they've turned things around. Johnny Barbado, I don't know if you remember that name, played briefly, pitched for the Yankees. That's the last time that Varela was actually even halfway good, but they weren't even this good. Like even last year, they were a 500 team when they made the playoffs. So here's Nicholas Machado talking a little bit about the game-winning hit and the success they've had.
Just kind of tell me what you saw on that pitch and that at bat.
1-2 count. I knew he threw me a curveball. I did it before. Just know I had to stay back, and that's what I did. And I barreled it opposite field.
Big picture, man. Why is this team better this year? Why are you guys doing what you're doing?
We put in the work in the offseason. We stay together. And expect big things from Vipers because we're on top.
Tell me about this because, it's been a long time since the school had this in baseball.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's been a long time since we have a, 13? Hey, what are we, 13-1?
13-1, yeah.
13-1, right? Yeah, 13-1. And you know, we want anyone who wants to smoke. Let's run it. Let's go.
What about just you fall behind and then you're able to come back and battle?
Oh yeah, I just knew that like baseball's a game. It's hard. Only you go 3 for 10, you're a Hall of Famer. I know if I struggle, I'm gonna struggle. I'm gonna have games with that, but I just gotta flip the page like our coach says.
Yeah, tell me about your coach because you know it's a long history of baseball with him. But what's he been like?
Best coach I've ever had. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be in the position I am. You guys, anyone here, laser shaped us to be where we are right now.
I like they're not used to it. He has to ask the dugout, what are we, 13-1?
13?
Something like how many have we won already? Yeah. No, but it's a good story, like we said before. And then with Laser, it's interesting too, because as we talked about before, like people know some of the things that have happened with him in the past. You know, at Gulliver, he wins a state title, then he has to resign, controversial circumstances there. Then we know what happened later on, you know, with the whole biogenesis thing and being, named in all that scandal and all of that. But it's been a tough few years for him off the field, but he's back in high school coaching, and it's amazing. The kids, like I was sitting there with him post game, and a couple of those kids gave him a hug. They gravitate to him, and I always heard that was the same case when he was at Gulliver. The kids loved him, the coaches did, and he's had success wherever he's gone. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see how far he can take this team, going forward. But let's talk about another team that has been there. It was Varela. It was kind of similar to Varela until about 3-4 years ago, where they hadn't really taken that next step. And then in 2019, they got to state. In 2019, also, the Miami Springs Golden Hawks won a game at Lone Depot Park, which, remember, Jason Torres even blasted a home run over that left field, over the Cleveland, over what was then called the Clevelander. And then they got to state. So this year, they didn't get a home run in that game, but they were able to beat Southwest at Lone Depot Park. They won that Field of Dreams special event game. Good omen for the Golden Hawks potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, they're 12-5 on the year. They're seemingly starting to roll here. They've won, what is it now, 2, 3, about 5 in a row. Against some pretty decent competition. Beat Archbishop McCarthy 6-4. Beat Southwest 6-3. Beat South Dayton the first round of GMACs. And again, even they've had some injuries with their pitching staff, but it seems like they're finally starting to get healthy on that front, and that's going to be key. If they're able to get their studs on the mound back when the playoffs come around, that's going to bode well for them.
Yeah, that's pretty much what's been happening, is that they're pitching. They came in with all these stud pitchers, and they just started dropping like flies early in the season. I mean, you got David Davila for commit to FSU, elbow issue, but now he's been back the last few weeks. Closes out the big win over McCarthy, a big upset win they had. They also they closed out that game against Southwest. Jordan Vargas had a back problem, but came back. He's been able to hit, hasn't really been able to pitch. If he can come in and pitch down the stretch, that's going to be huge. He's a signee. And of course, Brendan Oliveira has been, their heart and soul, the ace on the mound there. He's been pitching. And then in his case, our condolences to him. He lost his father before the season. So it's been tough to get, it's been tough mentally, the challenge to kind of stay and, deal with that situation and continue to lead the Golden Hawks. But the whole team's done a great job, and a lot of guys have picked each other up. Andy Hernandez, a Bethune-Cookman commit, has pitched some big innings. They were only thinking he was going to be a seldom-used reliever as far as pitching goes, but he was able to do it, and he had some big innings in that game against Southwest. So this Golden Hawks team, kind of similar in the sense to what Varela's facing. They're in Class 4A. Last year they got to the regional finals. Key West seems like that one team. And I wouldn't call them as much maybe a juggernaut as Doral in the other scenario, but a tough opponent, a tough obstacle.
By perspective, with given the classifications, they
exactly.
are that for that group.
They are, and you're talking about a traditional program with 11 state titles. I think it's still at the top with Westminster, tied with the most. So that's going to be the big obstacle. But I mean, Springs rolling at the right time. Here's their coach, David Fanshaw, talking about it.
Coach, to get a victory that this time of year, you guys seem to be getting a little bit of momentum now. The win over McCarthy last week, now this one. And what was it like though before that? What was it like that for your kids? Who don't get the chance to play here at Marlins Park?
Oh, they were excited. It wasn't so much about who we were playing today. It was about where we were playing. The kids, they have been talking about it for 2 weeks. The school was really excited about it, and for the kids, it was a moment for them to play in a big league stadium, which none of them have ever had the experience of playing and in front of their parents and friends and all the guys at school. So for them, I mean, this is a dream come true for them.
That being said, to come back late the way they did, after you fall down early, you get that big 6th inning. What does that say about what they're doing right now?
I think that the boys have been playing a little better. I think after spring break, for us, I think it's more of a mental thing. Just having our best players available, and we're a team where our best players are our pitching staff, and early on in the year we didn't have 3 of them, 3 out of the 4, and just having them back is almost like a morale for them, a boost for them, confidence, knowing that we're in games and we're playing tough teams, and they have the experience to be able to battle for us out on the field.
Tell us about those guys, because Brandon at the top, of course, they're looking at a tough season for him, but you're getting another one of your big arms back too eventually.
Right. Well, we just had Davila. He's the one that closed out today, David Davila, and he closed out against McCarthy. He's real tough to hit. I always tell him when he throws strikes, he's almost unhittable. It's really hard to string 2-3 hits together with him on the mound. He throws the ball well. He has a really good curveball, and it's a difference maker. So early on in the game when we rolled our starter, knowing the fact that either him or eventually Vargas, we have Andy back as well. We changed one of our starters, and now he's in the starting role. Having those guys is a big help for us.
Yeah, and like you said, rolling at the right time, and I think this team, if they get hot, you could see them in Fort Myers for sure in Class 4A. But a team that, if you told me right now that they wouldn't get to Fort Myers, I would shut this off and I wouldn't believe you, would be the Douglas Eagles. I mean, there's no way that team is not. I mean, at this point, they look pretty unstoppable. One of the biggest reasons we've talked a lot about Douglas in previous shows, but I wanted to talk in particular about Christian Rodriguez, because I've seen some good pitchers over the years covering this thing, but he is dominant right now. I mean, every start, we talked about it off camera, every start is 14 Ks, 13 Ks, 12, 11, and not against, random teams. No, we're talking powerhouse competition. He's doing it against North Broward Prep, a 2-time defending state champion. He's doing it against teams that are nationally ranked. This is pretty sick what this kid is doing.
Yeah, no, Christian Rodriguez, he's just absolutely dominant. 81 strikeouts in 39 2/3 innings. Basically 2 strikeouts an inning, more than 2 strikeouts an inning. That's almost unheard of. And the sad thing is, he was basically doing this last year too, but he was the number 3 on their staff. Again, because last year they had Jake Clemente and Chris Arroyo who headed the group, but even last year he had 66 strikeouts and 46 in the 3rd innings. It's just the latest reminder of just the powerhouse and the prospect building factory that Stoneman Douglas is for baseball. And for good measure, one of Stoneman Douglas's own alums who's in the big leagues, Jesus Luzardo, who I'm fortunate enough to get to cover every day with the Marlins, he's keeping tabs on what Christian Rodriguez is doing. He talks or texts with Christian at least once a week, and his exact words to me when I talked with him about him just a couple of days ago was, yeah, it's not a matter of if this guy's going to make it here. It's just how quickly is he going to get up to the big leagues. He's that good this young, and when you hear a big leaguer who's just amazed and taken aback by what a kid in high school is doing, and the guy who was in his shoes in that spot not too long ago,
yeah,
that's me some pretty good praise there.
Yeah, they have a good a good ties of like alumni coming back and helping the current guys like that. Douglas has that culture, that's the word I was looking for. They have that, which gets thrown around a lot, but they really do in that sense on the baseball side, and that shows you why they've been so successful. Because here you got a guy like, I wanted you on to mention that, because I know you had talked to me about it. I remember now when you brought it up with Luzardo, because that's pretty good. You see a guy who's had success in the major leagues, and basically he's not that much older than Christian, but he's like a mentor to him. And these are guys, and they all know each other because he probably saw Christian when he was coming up, way before high school. Once you're like in the youth leagues, you already know kind of who might be the studs coming up in a few years. And here you are, Christian, two-way player too. I mean, we talked a lot about his pitching, but he can rake too, which is the interesting part. As you see more the game evolve, a lot more of these two-way players, he's another one that could be an impactful type that, once he makes it to that level. But we'll keep an eye on Christian and the Eagles who continue to roll. They're trying to do something pretty special if they can pull it off. I mean, I know they're not making that an emphasis for them to go undefeated. But if they did, it rarely ever happens. I think the last time was in the 90s when Westminster Christian had one of those undefeated runs. So we'll see in the next few weeks how they handle it as the competition ramps up. But let's talk about the team who did have the heartbreaking loss to Varela, but is still one of the biggest turnarounds when you look at the big picture as a program that I've seen, not just this season, but maybe in a long, long time. And that's the Sunset Knights. I was fortunate enough to be able to do a story on them the other day. They were 0-17 and outscored 284-4 that season. This was only 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, excuse me. And last season, Coach Julio Mendoza goes over there, takes over, starts to rebuild things both on and off the field. They still went 1-14, but a lot more competitive games, a lot of one-run losses. You could start to kind of see how the buy-in was there, the talent was growing a little bit, and they refurbished their field, they refurbished their clubhouse. They got a nice donation from John Ruiz to help out on that front. And now this year, they're hitting over 380. They've hit 15 homers as a team. They look like a real baseball team now. I mean, they've had some injuries. They lost 2 of their top catchers. They lost one of their top pitchers, and still have been able to roll to an 11-7 record. And when you look at what Sunset is doing, I mean, again, very similar to Varela. They will face some tough competition come playoff time, but they're trying to hold it together, not run out of gas now with some of these injuries. But it's pretty remarkable what they've been able to do just to get 11 wins after they landed in such a bottomless pit they were in the last 2 years.
Yeah, and again, a couple of their wins. I mean, you look at they beat Miami Springs earlier this year.
Right.
It's not like it's all fluke. It's not like it's all flukes or light schedule. They face some teams who have some winning records and are going to be in the playoffs. And when you have some guys on the offense like they have who are putting up some big numbers, Angel Santiago, 571 batting average, 1082 slugging, 5 home runs. Wow, 13 of his 28 hits are extra bases or for extra base hits, 24 runs. He's dominating out there. Daniel Reyes hitting 405. Yeah, they've got a bunch of guys who are just raking out there, and if their pitching is able to hold up, again, it's another one of those just Cinderella type stories, and those are the ones that you love to see. I mean, obviously we cover the big dogs with Selman Douglas and Columbus and North Broward Prep and all the other, and Miami Christian, who's been on the run the last couple of years, but to be able to see these stories unfold before our eyes as they're happening, it's these type of stories that are great to see on the high school front, to see how these teams are able to just come back from literally rock bottom and show what they're able to do and be able to do it in an area like South Florida where there are so many big teams, and for them to be able to find a way to make a name for themselves. This is fun.
Yeah, I mean, they almost shut it down. I was told they almost shut down the program a couple of years ago because it was in such bad shape. And so they're literally back. I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but they're literally back from the abyss now and doing well. And we don't talk enough sometimes about just, even on the real life end. I mean, this is a team that they go out and they fundraise. A lot of teams go out and fundraise, but they have become self-sufficient where they're not a financial burden on the school, which at the public school level happens a lot sometimes, not through any fault of their own. It's just the situation that they're in. And to keep kids, a lot of those kids are guys that would be going to Sunset anyway, that in years past drifted away to this private school or that charter school as more and more have opened up and become athletic powerhouses. So good to see in both cases, both in Sunset and Varela's case, kids are, representing the school that they would be a part of and turning it into a special run on each side. So on that note, we're going to talk a little bit about those players of the week. We'll start in Dade with the aforementioned Adrian Santana for Doral Academy, 4 for 4 with 2 home runs and a 9-2 win over Archbishop McCarthy. Those Firebirds, Coach Ralph Suarez will have those guys getting ready for another run at another state title, I'm sure, in 6A. In the girls water polo, Kathleen Searig had 7 goals to lead Gulliver to a 22-8 win over St. Thomas Aquinas. The Raiders fell to Lake Nona in the state championship game, but a great season for them to get back to that point. On the track, in girls track and field, Northwestern, we know, as always, looks like the odds-on favorite to keep that impressive record streak going of state championships. One of the big reasons is junior Shekinah Tresvant, who won the triple jump and the 400 hurdles this past week to lead the Bulls to their 4th consecutive GMAC title, their 11th in the past 12 years. And the only time they didn't win was one that they had a little situation where they had to pull out of the tournament. So really, they've never been beat at the GMAC when they've participated in over the past dozen years. In boys tennis, we've got districts going on. Alejandro Urdaneta won a tough 3-set match to qualify for state. The state tournament in tennis is coming up next week. And in boys lacrosse, Wade Parker for Westminster Christian had 13 saves to lead them to a thrilling 8-7 win to win the district 16-1A title. And in Broward County in baseball, Coral Springs, Daniel Añeja had a big game, 2 for 3 with a triple, 3 RBIs to lead Coral Springs over Matter Lakes. Those are two teams that are in that competitive kind of trying to make some noise potentially in the playoffs this season. On the tennis side, Dennis Oliveira of Stoneman Douglas, very similar, also won his #1 singles division to qualify for state and win a district title. Megan Rasmussen on the softball side for Pines Charter, 3 for 4, 3 RBI to lead the Jaguars to a win over Palm Beach Gardens. Because of the rain last week, not a lot of games, but softball coming up, the BCAA tournament, the Big 8 is next week, and softball. Pines Charter, one of those sleeper teams, for those of you who follow softball, they're always pretty good. They're always in the mix, and they're starting to pick. They're starting to get hot, kind of like some of these teams we talked about at the right time. Junie C, girls tennis player from Coral Springs Charter. I think you wrote about her last year. When
she was one of our players of the year last year. She ran the table in both singles and doubles in her class 2A last year.
Yeah, she won her district title, so she's off to state to try and win another one there. And Dylan Chamowitz for St. Thomas Aquinas boys water polo combined 6 goals, 7 assists, led the Raiders to their first state championship in boys water polo since 2013. Thrilling match over Belen at the Belen pool. You can imagine all those Belen and St. Thomas fans kind of, the little rivalry there that's become. That's the 4-time more than any other matchup in boys water polo. Those two have faced each other 4 times now for the title and split 2-2 now in that all-time series. So thrilling chapter there. And now let's transition a little bit to spring football talk. And we'll in 2 weeks, we mentioned the practices begin all around town. Before we do that, though, I got the chance to go to the Brian Piccolo Awards this year, and a very nice ceremony. I got to thank the BCAA, Sean Serra, and those guys for being so hospitable to me and for inviting me to go. And I really had a great time just seeing some of the, a lot of kids with some impressive resumes, both not just athletically, but more importantly, academically. UM coach Mario Cristobal was there, gave a nice speech about leadership and what it takes to kind of succeed and kind of be that, that inspiration to others and that sort of thing, and hard work. And Mark Fletcher and Colin Hurst, we've covered them plenty and talked to plenty about their accolades, on the football field. But to cap 2 careers with this award was really special for them. I mean, a lot of, these are guys that are going off to college right now. Colin's going to go play quarterback at Presbyterian College. Mark Fletcher, we know, is staying at the U to see if he can charge up that backfield. But outstanding GPAs, north of 3.5, in each case, and great grades. These are guys that get it done both in and out of the classroom, and it's impressive to see them.
They're more than good athletes; they're good people too. I mean, Colin, I've covered him since his freshman year. Mark Fletcher the last 2 years, and they're just both good human beings. Each time I see them, they're the positive, upbeat attitudes. They're the ones who go above and beyond away from the field, and it's good to see them recognized on that front in addition to their athletic accolades.
Yeah, I mean, again, you see what we're very excited to see what they can do. I mean, Colin, I think a lot of people might see where he's going, and not many people know about Presbyterian, but he could go there and tear it up, and we could be talking about him down the road. He's always been one of those that's defied the odds. When people look at him, he doesn't look like that imposing of a figure as a quarterback, but you're talking about the second highest passer in Broward County history now. That's how he capped his career. So congratulations to both of them. But before we end the show, let's talk a little bit about this, Jordan. The high school transfer portal has been crazy. I had Larry talking about it here the other day, and how many kids are just going left and right. It's going to get even more after spring, because as we know, if you play spring ball, you can't go somewhere else and then leave and then play for the same team. So some of these kids will wait till after the spring session to then move around. So who knows what's going to happen? But we know a few that already are in place. I mean, we've talked about Willis McGahee going over to Columbus now from Palmetto. That's going to just beef up that defense tremendously. Armando Blunt is already throwing in track for Central. It was weird seeing the CEN next to his name the other day. I'm so used to him being at Dillard, but he's going to be another monster that's just going to fill the void left behind by Ruben Bain and a few others that graduated. You know, the talk of the town has been Norland, the way that they've been able to load up on both sides to really make a serious push to try and challenge Central for that state title in that loaded bracket. It's going to be year 2 for Booker T with Ice Harris back, you know, and how much more of a step does that school take? I mean, they added an extra running back that are on an already loaded backfield. They had to get a little bigger up front. They did. Can the Tornadoes make a run? I mean, Jordan, what are you most curious about? Like, any teams that stand out to you that you're curious to see? How does this team emerge in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the team that I was going to talk about, and that was Norland. Just, I remember one stretch over the offseason where it's like over 3 weeks, it was like every other day I see something on Twitter. It's like, oh, this person's transferring in Norland. Oh, Norland got another one. Oh, Norland got another. And it was just like, how many guys are they going to get? How many guys are they able to get? And it's just like seeing how it all comes together when you have so many different people coming in from different schools and trying to find that chemistry. Seeing how much could be too much, I think, is the question I'm asking myself. How much new is too much? How much is just enough? Are they going to be able to strike that balance? And another one for me, seeing what happens at Northwestern. Just, again, Max Edwards is gone. They've got the new coaching staff there. Just seeing what happens there. And again, it's 2M is going to be the storyline, basically, regardless of who we talk about, just because of how loaded it is. So seeing how all of that plays out with a couple of those teams who are trying to crack through and get past the Central and Dade and the Heritage and Broward, and seeing which of these teams rise to the top to be able to become the next teams that rival both of them is going to be key to watch throughout spring and as we get into the season.
I want to see. I'm going to go way south on this one, and I want to see what Homestead does this year.
That's another one, yeah.
Because they, to their credit, with Coach Ron Thornton down there, they have kept it together. And if that continues to be the case and that survives the spring going in the next season, they're going to be still just as formidable. I mean, Joshua Townsend's going to still be there leading the way. And those guys have added a little bit too. Instead of losing, they've actually added in most cases. So I think the Broncos are going to be right there in the thick. Of course, St. Thomas has reloaded and will always be an obstacle. But how much can they narrow the gap? We're talking about Norland narrowing the gap with a Central and maybe Northwestern also getting back. Northwestern was very close. That's what a lot of people don't remember.
Yeah.
That one play, if they get that touchdown, it's them potentially going to state and ending the dynasty for the Rockets. So they weren't that far off. I think with them, new coach Michael Lee Harris, who was a receiver back in the day for Teddy Bridgewater, how can he basically just like how much can he add? How much can he keep that staff? Keep the talent there past the spring. How does this spring picture look as a prelude to going forward? And quarterback play, because they lose Teron Dickens, that's going to be huge. Who do they get back there? Who ends up being the guy there that can carry this team forward on that front? And in Broward, I think the biggest thing is going to be right away that first week, the Broward Showcase. I mean, we already heard there are some mega teams coming down more than before from parts of California and others, a lot of national powerhouses. And, we know Heritage is going to be involved again. St. Thomas is going to be involved. One team that caught my attention that's going to be involved is Monarch. And that's another squad. Yeah. And that's another squad that last year made some noise. I think got to the second round. They had a very good offense last year. So how far do the Knights take it this year? Do they become a more legit power? And Western's not done. I mean, I'm here. They've brought in some kids. Coach Rat's got guys going. I mean, yes, they lose Colin and a few others, but I think Western, in some regards, at least from what we've been hearing and what Larry's been talking about on previous shows, it sounds like Western maybe could even be more stacked than they were, believe it or not, even though they lose their quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, no, it's going to be, again, never a dull moment when it comes to high school football down here. Never a dull moment.
No, that is for sure. And we will be out there covering all of it and a little more than normal this year because of this show and other reasons. We're going to try to maybe bring you a little more on the spring football end, and we'll be featuring some of these kids in the next few weeks on the show and in writing at MiamiHerald.com. Jordan will be out there. We'll get our buddy David Wilson out there to do some work as we get closer and closer to that 2023 football season. But for now, for Jordan McPherson, I'm Andre Fernandez. Thanks, everybody, once again for joining us. We'll see you next week. Titletown South Florida, sponsored by Orange Bowl. Since 1935, Orange Bowl's service and commitment to South Florida has been as diverse as the residents that live here. Over the past 2 decades, Orange Bowl and its partners have committed more than $40 million to improving the South Florida community through its Orange Bowl Cares initiative. To learn more, visit orangebowl.org.